These are the encounters we can't explain, the ones that make us question if our world is the only one or if there's something else lurking just beyond sight. 1. The Man from Taured. In 1954, a man allegedly arrived at Haneda Airport in Tokyo with a passport from Taured, a country that doesn't exist. The passport looked official, but it had one strange detail. It was issued in a country called Taured, a place that, as far as immigration officers at Haneda Airport knew, didn't exist on Earth. Confused, they ask him to clarify. The man confidently points to the region between France and Spain, insisting Taured has been there for centuries. When officers suggest he's mistaken, and perhaps means Andorra, he grows frustrated, repeating, "No, Taured has always been there and had existed for nearly 1,000 years." Thinking he might be involved in something suspicious, Japanese officers arranged for him to stay overnight at a nearby hotel while they investigated. They posted 2 guards outside his room to ensure he didn't leave, but by the next morning, when officers went to question him again, he had vanished without a trace. The story of the man from Taured has led some to believe he came from another dimension, with the mysterious country of Taured being the first clue. When asked to point out his country on a map, he indicated the area between Spain and France, where Andorra is located. Confused and frustrated, he questioned why Taured wasn't on the map. He insisted it had been there for 1,000 years. The man also carried currency from multiple European countries, with passport stamps from various airports worldwide, and claimed he had even visited Tokyo several times before. However, when officials checked with the company he claimed to work for, they'd never heard of him. The hotel he supposedly had a reservation at, and the Tokyo contacts he was meant to meet, also had no record of him. Oddly, the man also had documents that seemed to back up his story. But the strangest twist came the next morning when officers went to question him at his hotel room, only to find he had disappeared. The room was on a high floor with no balcony, and police even ruled out the possibility of an escape through the windows. Together, these strange events have led many to believe that the man may have accidentally crossed into our dimension from a parallel one. In his own universe, they say Taured truly existed, and he was simply telling the truth. His sudden disappearance is often explained as him somehow slipping back into his own world, without warning, without explanation, and maybe even without meaning to. In the 12th century, in the small village of Woolpit, England, villagers discovered 2 young children, a brother and sister, with green-tinted skin, dressed in unfamiliar clothes, and speaking a language no one recognized. The children seemed terrified and disoriented, and at first they refused to eat anything offered to them except raw beans. After some time, the children slowly adjusted to their new surroundings, and their diet expanded. Eventually, their skin lost its green hue. Tragically, the boy became ill and passed away not long after their arrival, but the girl survived and went on to adapt fully to English customs, even learning to speak English. When villagers asked about her origins, she spoke of a place called Saint Martin's Land, a strange, dimly lit world underground, where the sun never fully shone, casting a twilight glow. She claimed that she and her brother had been herding their father's cattle when they heard the sound of bells. Following the sound, they somehow found themselves emerging into the bright, unfamiliar world above. Even today, the mystery of the green children of Woolpit endures. Were they from a hidden underground civilization, or is there a more scientific explanation for their strange appearance? The truth remains as shadowy as St. Martin's Land itself. The Bennington Triangle. In the woods of southwestern Vermont, a place known as the Bennington Triangle surrounds Glastonbury Mountain, and the nearby towns of Bennington, Woodford, and the ghost towns of Somerset and Glastonbury. People say these woods are filled with mysteries and dark forces that defy explanation. The story of the Bennington Triangle begins in the 1800s when these towns were lively logging communities. But as the trees disappeared, so did the jobs. By 1937, Somerset and Glastonbury were abandoned. In the years that followed, especially between 1945 and 1950, strange events began unfolding around Glastonbury Mountain as people began vanishing without a trace. The mysterious disappearances started with Mitty Rivers, a well-known outdoorsman, on November 12, 1945. At 74, Mitty was leading a group of hunters through the woods when he got separated. Despite a massive 8-day search, only a single rifle cartridge was found. No tracks, no body. It was as if Mitty had simply vanished into thin air. Then, just over a year later, 18-year-old college student Paula Weldon also disappeared while hiking on December 1, 1946. Despite a widespread search and a $5,000 reward, no trace of Paula was ever found. 3 years to the day after Paula's disappearance, James Tedford went missing while riding a bus through the area. Witnesses saw him on the bus, but by the time it arrived in Bennington, he was gone. His belongings were still on board, yet James was never seen again. In October 1950, 8-year-old Paul Jeffson vanished from his mother's truck while she was working nearby. A search dog tracked his scent to a nearby road before the trail went cold. Paul's father later revealed that Paul had felt oddly drawn to the mountains, almost as if they were calling to him. 2 weeks after Paul's disappearance, Frida Langer went missing while hiking with her cousin near Somerset Reservoir. She had slipped into a stream and told her cousin she'd returned to camp for dry clothes but never made it. Despite extensive searches, her body was only found 7 months later in an open area that had already been scoured. Her cause of death remains unknown. Beyond these disappearances, strange sightings have added to the mountain's eerie reputation. In the early 1800s, stranded stagecoach passengers reported being attacked by a giant, hairy creature over 6 feet tall. These sightings became so frequent that locals gave it a name: the Bennington Monster. Through the years, people near Glastonbury Mountain have reported strange lights in the sky and even UFO sightings. According to Legends of America, some believe the mystery stems from a Native American curse. One version of the legend speaks of a malevolent stone on Glastonbury Mountain that swallows anyone unfortunate enough to encounter it. Others say the land is cursed because it's the place where all 4 winds meet. A few suggest a more earthly explanation, such as a serial killer who preyed on the Bennington area during the 1940s and 50s. While theories abound, one fact remains. The 5 missing persons cases from the Bennington Triangle remain unsolved to this day. In the quiet town of Hexham, Northumberland, in England, a tragedy struck in May 1957 when 2 young sisters, Joanna, aged 11, and Jacqueline, aged 6, were killed in a car accident. Their parents, John and Florence Pollock, were devastated. John, however, had long held a firm belief in reincarnation, even claiming he had a vision that his daughters would return to them one day. His wife Florence, though grieving deeply, was skeptical. A year later, Florence gave birth to twin girls, Gillian and Jennifer Pollock, on October 4th, 1958. From the moment they were born, the twins exhibited unusual signs that seemed to link them to their deceased sisters. Jennifer, the younger twin, bore a striking birthmark on her forehead that matched a scar Jacqueline had had from an accident as a child. Jennifer also had another birthmark on her waist that resembled a mark Jacqueline had. Gillian, the older twin, shared characteristics with Joanna, including a calm, nurturing disposition, unusual memories and behaviors. As the twins grew older, They began to show an unusual familiarity with their deceased sisters' lives, places they had never visited, and knowledge they had no way of knowing. At around age 3, they began to ask for toys that Joanna and Jacqueline had owned, items they had never been told about. Jillian and Jennifer also named places and people from their late sisters' lives, often describing them with accurate details. For instance, when the family visited Hexham, the twins reportedly recognized locations and landmarks they'd never seen before. They were able to describe the playground their sisters frequented, even pointing out specific streets and areas that held significance to Joanna and Jacqueline. According to their parents, Jillian and Jennifer even spoke of incidents and experiences from the lives of their late sisters as though they were their own memories. A particularly unsettling aspect of the case was the twins' apparent fear of cars. Despite their young age and lack of knowledge about the accident, they would hold each other tightly and express panic whenever they saw a car approaching quickly. In one instance, they reportedly reenacted the tragic accident with such accuracy and distress that it left their parents convinced they were reliving their sister's traumatic end. The twins eventually grew out of these behaviors as they reached about 5 years old. They lost any conscious recollection of their past life memories, and the strange incidents ceased. Over time, they lived relatively normal lives, with no further mention of their connections to Joanna and Jacqueline. Psychologists and paranormal researchers have studied the Pollock twins case, noting it as a significant example in reincarnation studies. Some skeptics argue that John Pollock's strong belief in reincarnation may have unconsciously influenced the twins. Others, however, see the birthmarks, the memories, and the behavioral resemblances as evidence of a phenomenon science struggles to explain. To this day, the Pollock twins case remains one of the most compelling stories in the realm of reincarnation studies. It raises questions about life after death, the nature of memory, and whether there's a possibility that the soul can transcend physical loss, carrying forward traces of a past life. The bloop is one of the most unexplained underwater mysteries of recent times. This ultra-low frequency sound, detected in 1997 by the U.S. National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration, it was picked up by underwater microphones placed deep in the Pacific Ocean, thousands of miles apart. The sound was so powerful that it could be heard across an astonishing distance of over 3,000 miles. Scientists initially thought that this enigmatic noise, dubbed the bloop, could be the call of an enormous, undiscovered sea creature lurking in the depths. Speculation surrounding the bloop's origin has run wild over the years. Some theorized it was a new massive marine species, given that the sound's frequency and pattern closely resembled those of biological creatures, leading some to envision colossal creatures, perhaps even akin to the mythical kraken. Others suggested more grounded explanations, like underwater earthquakes or icebergs breaking off from Antarctic glaciers, which can produce similar low-frequency sounds. The U.S. National Oceanic Administration eventually attributed the sound to the latter theory, explaining that the bloop was likely caused by the fracturing of a large ice shelf or an iceberg scraping the ocean floor. Despite the scientific explanation, some people still question the true source of the sound, intrigued by the possibility that the ocean, with 80% of its depths unexplored, could indeed be harboring ancient, unseen life forms. The legend of the bloop has only grown over the years, with it often cited as an example of how much we have yet to learn about our oceans. It's a reminder of the hidden mysteries beneath the waves, sparking curiosity and keeping the fascination with underwater enigmas alive. Whether it was an iceberg or a massive creature that caused the sound, The bloop remains one of the most fascinating auditory mysteries of the deep. The bloop is one of the most unexplained underwater mysteries of recent times. This ultra-low frequency sound, detected in 1997 by the U.S. National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration, it was picked up by underwater microphones placed deep in the Pacific Ocean, thousands of miles apart. The sound was so powerful that it could be heard across an astonishing distance of over 3,000 miles. Scientists initially thought that this enigmatic noise, dubbed the bloop, could be the call of an enormous undiscovered sea creature lurking in the depths. Speculation surrounding the bloop's origin has run wild over the years. Some theorized it was a new, massive marine species, given that the sound's frequency and pattern closely resembled those of biological creatures, leading some to envision colossal creatures, perhaps even akin to the mythical kraken. Others suggested more grounded explanations, like underwater earthquakes or icebergs breaking off from Antarctic glaciers, which can produce similar low-frequency sounds. The U.S. National Oceanic Administration eventually attributed the sound to the latter theory, explaining that the bloop was likely caused by the fracturing of a large ice shelf or an iceberg scraping the ocean floor. Despite the scientific explanation, some people still question the true source of the sound, intrigued by the possibility that the ocean, with 80% of its depths unexplored, could indeed be harboring ancient, unseen life forms. The legend of the bloop has only grown over the years, with it often cited as an example of how much we have yet to learn about our oceans. It's a reminder of the hidden mysteries beneath the waves, sparking curiosity and keeping the fascination with underwater enigmas alive. Whether it was an iceberg or a massive creature that caused the sound, the bloop remains one of the most fascinating auditory mysteries of the deep. Thank you so much for watching. See you in the next one.